It's like a kazoo at the moment. But then you open tiny little holes with your fingers and then you have notes. And if you get really good, you can make an entire finger orchestra and you become a dandelion quintet. A little quick sample.
The long white blanket of winter is retreating to the tops of the mountains here in southwest Colorado. The birds are busy. The streams are flowing. The trees are budding. And delicious edible plants are sprouting, shooting up from the ground, fueled with the energy of spring. It's often said that Colorado's wild edible resources were so great during the 1800s that the native Utes had to work only a few hours a day in gathering food. Small wonder then that they long resisted conversion to European agricultural practices that required long, hard hours of labor in order to grow poorer food than could be had from the forests. While the forests have changed, they still do produce a bounty for those that know where to look. Katrina Blair, author, activist, raw foods advocate, and wild foods foraging expert, is just such a person. Katrina was raised in the woods of the San Juans. Her father, longtime geology professor Dr. Robert Blair, and her mother, Pat, a raw food pioneer, were instrumental in Katrina's life path. She received her MA in Holistic Health Education from JFK University in 1997, and in 1998 she founded Turtle Lake Refuge, a Durango-based nonprofit that runs classes in wild harvested foods, promotes sustainable resource use, and sells innovative and delicious locally grown and living foods in its downtown cafe and at the summer farmers market. Katrina generously agreed to share a tiny bit of her knowledge of the edible landscape with us for our first 2014 Summer Series edition of FORTIFACT. Edible Plants of the San Juans. In contrast to a previous episode on wild mushroom foraging, Dean Mullen and I had to hike a fair bit of land to find our prizes, while Katrina and I found many foods within a 300-foot radius of a well-known local trailhead. Such is the fecundity of spring.
All right, so this is the Siberian Elm, and this is a fantastic food tree. I actually really appreciate the Siberian Elm because they're fast growing and they don't need much water. The fun thing about this tree is that this one is in its seed stage right now. So these are the little elm seeds, and they're very edible, very delicious. When they dry out, they're crunchy, and you can just put them in a bowl and add your milk, and they make the best elm seed crunch cereal for breakfast.
Oh, we do.
But then I also eat the leaves, and these are young, these are just budding out. But they're very, really tasty. Just mild in flavor, fantastic for making juices or putting in salads. And then I also make a green chip where I'll take the leaves and marinate them in a sauce and then dehydrate them or dry them in the sun. And then they become crispy and delicious. And that's a great way to eat your elm trees. You might not think of it as a wild edible food, and yet thistle, this is the Musk Thistle. It's a biannual. And this thistle is a very delicious green juice. And you can pick the thistle on this side because there's no spines on the back spine. And then you can pick it and break it into pieces and put it in the blender if you'd like, and blend it up with an apple or some lemon and make a really great juice. And you just strain out the prickles, like the prickles just come out in the strainer. You can also eat it, but you just have to, carefully pick off some of the spiny leaves, and then you can eat the stem also, which is really good. This big leafed plant down here on the ground is a common edible that is also sold in the supermarkets if you look, in certain places. And definitely in farmers market and other countries, it's very commonly used as a food. This is called burdock. And burdock is a fantastic food, and the part that you eat is the root. These leaves are very bitter, but the root is like a long white taproot that's like a carrot, and very tasty. In Japanese, it's called gobo, and it's very commonly eaten there as a daily vegetable. And we're lucky enough to have it growing wild here. Burdock grows into the tall stalk that creates the burrs that stick to everything. So there's several different, as I'm walking along the trail, I'm noticing 4 different varieties of wild mustard. And mustards are amazing. This is a wild mustard, and all the wild mustards with their petals of 4 are spicy and sweet enough to make you want more. Their flowers come in yellow, pink, purple, and white, enough to get the creative juices flowing into the night. So all the mustards have 4 petals, all their flowers, and it doesn't matter if they're yellow or white or purple. If you look really close, there's 4 petals, and we'll find another mustard that's easier to tell. But this is a mustard also because it has these pods. So mustards have 4 petals and different shaped pods. And if we were to eat this pod, it would taste spicy like wasabi. And it does. All right, so here's rose, wild rose, and that's Rosa woodii is its scientific name. It's in the Rosaceae family, which is in the same family as a lot of the fruits that we eat, like plums and apples and cherries. But wild rose makes these rose hips. That's their fruit. This is a dried rose hip from last season, and the new rose hips haven't budded out yet. This rose bush is just putting out its young leaves. The whole thing is edible. You can eat the green leaves before the rose hips. So that's one way to enjoy the rose. And also you can eat the rose flowers. They're very sweet and very aromatic. Just as a word of caution, as you're beginning to embark on a wild food journey for yourself, do a lot of research and go out with other people and really get to know what you're doing before you ingest it, or take tiny small steps so that you're safe.